Scary Mysteries, Twisted Twos, Lost Cosmonauts, and Bardstown Murders. Tales of hauntings, murder, and scary mysteries. Every week, Twisted Twos dives into a pair of uniquely terrifying true stories that are worthy of a more in-depth look. For this week, we focus on a conspiracy theory in outer space, and a series of mysterious murders that happened in an idyllic town. Get ready for Scary Mysteries, Twisted Twos. Number 1. Lost Cosmonauts. April 12, 1961. On this day, Yuri Gagarin became the first person to successfully head into space. However, despite Yuri's monumental trip, conspiracy theorists believe he wasn't the first one sent there by the Soviet Union. They say that there have been several other lost cosmonauts whose journeys didn't end well, and that their deaths have since been covered up. The theory of the lost cosmonauts began shortly after Yuri famously made it back safely from orbit. Unlike NASA, the launchings done by the Soviet Union were run by the military, hence stories of secrecy and possibilities of a cover-up were rampant. So is there any proof of this at all? For starters, the Soviet Union was proud of trumpeting its wins all over the world, but were also notorious for shrouding and airbrushing failures from their records. One example of this is the Nedelin catastrophe, where more than 150 people died when an R-16 ballistics missile exploded at a launch pad. The records were swept from history, and it wasn't until the collapse of the Soviet Union that the incident ever came to light. Prior to Yuri, there were rumors of cosmonauts sent to space, and most of them perishing during their ill-fated flights. In one report, at least one cosmonaut died during 1957 and 1958, while another leak from the Czech said that 4 other cosmonauts lost their lives in doomed test flights in 1959. Perhaps the most chilling evidence comes from recordings supposedly captured by Italian brothers Achille and Giovanni Cordiglia. Using borrowed World War II communications equipment, the brothers captured and recorded early space transmissions at their makeshift bunker. They later on came forward stating they captured transmissions from an unpublicized manned Soviet flight, and that they even heard the last dying breaths of a cosmonaut as its craft failed to reach Earth's orbit. They also released another recording capturing the last words of a female cosmonaut before her craft burned during re-entry. While there were no official statements made by the regime during the time, in 2001, a senior Soviet space program engineer came forward and somewhat corroborated what the brothers had caught on tape. The engineer said that pilots by the name of Mitkov, Shaborin, and Ladovsky were killed between 1957 and 1959. Here is a portion of the audio that was captured from the female cosmonaut. More than the intrigue of the lost cosmonauts, Vladimir Ilyushin is considered as one of Russia's greatest pilots, and he had various speed and altitude records during the time. People say he was the first true man to go to outer space, or at least the first one that came back alive. During Yuri's triumphant return from space, Vladimir was nowhere to be found, and the Soviet Union couldn't consistently account for his whereabouts during the time. The official account was that he was recovering from a car accident. The account of his car crash, however, changed drastically over time. It came to a point that it was said to be so serious, it put him in a coma for a year, and that he was sent to China to recuperate. This was contradicted, however, when around the same time Vladimir received the Hero of the Soviet Union award, looking healthy and well. Moreover, many argue the Soviet healthcare system was pretty good during the era, and it was unlikely that they would have had to send their best pilot to China just to get treated. They say his return to China was problematic, causing him to land hundreds of miles off course in China. He was detained there, and in order to cover up their mistake and fear it would make them appear weak, the Soviet Union had his entire mission scrubbed away from history. If this is true, then it's very possible there were other lost cosmonauts, and that their true identities may remain hidden from the public forever. Number 2. Bardstown Murders. Regarded as a place where neighbors still borrow cups of sugar, Bardstown is a small place located just south of Louisville, Kentucky. The town consists of just 16,000 people and was once hailed as being the most beautiful small town in America. But despite that proclamation, Bardstown also carries a dark and sinister truth. The town was in disarray when 4 deaths and a missing person happened between 2013 and 2015, and it all started with the ambush killing of police officer Jason Ellis. In 2013, Jason was heading home from work when he stopped at exit 34 to remove branches blocking the road. He stepped out of his car, bent down to pick up the debris, and when he stood up, he was shot dead on the spot. When officers investigated the crime scene, they discovered that apparently the debris was placed there intentionally, and the shooter waited in hiding for whoever was going to move it. Jason suffered multiple gunshot wounds to the arms, torso, and face. The following year, in April of 2014, Kathy Netherland and her daughter Samantha were brutally murdered inside their home. Kathy was a special educations teacher and was shot several times. Meanwhile, Samantha was a 16-year-old sophomore who was beaten to death. Then in 2015, there was the disappearance of 35-year-old Crystal Rogers. Her boyfriend, Brooks Hoke, said he last saw her inside her home, and that when he woke up, she was gone. Crystal's car was later found abandoned with her keys, purse, and cell phone still inside. Months had passed and police named Brooks as a suspect. His brother Nick was fired from the police department for interfering with the investigation. However, no formal charges were ever filed. Many suspected Hawk was involved with the crime. His actions were also suspicious because despite knowing Crystal, he waited 2 days to report that she was missing. Crystal's father, Tommy, never gave up hope of finding his daughter. He spent years doing his own investigation and even posted a sign near the Hawk farm stating, "Brooks Hawk, where is Crystal Rogers?" However, tragedy struck the family again as Tommy was shot to death while out in the woods hunting. To date, all of the deaths remain a mystery. Bardstown citizens remain anxious, hoping the mystery will be solved eventually, if it will ever be solved at all. For a long time, Bardstown was known for having great whiskey, but because of the high-profile murders, it has gained a new reputation. The older residents, along with the new ones, are careful about walking around town. Rumors still persist about possible suspects, while more and more residents are left wondering who might be killed next. So there were 2 of the most mysterious and murderous stories around. The world can be a crazy place, and Twisted Twos is sure to show you why. If you like this video, then please subscribe to our channel, and each week we'll have a new scary mystery show for you to check out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.